All right, we talked ESPN, we talked Sleeper. Now it is time to talk about Yahoo. We're going to talk about 10 platform specific values that I think are really just mispriced on Yahoo and dudes that you can target a lot later than you should be able to in Yahoo and be able to manipulate the kind of standard board ADP. ESPN, there are values all over the board. I don't know who is making their rankings and why they're employed. Sleeper was a lot of quarterback values. And for Yahoo, honestly, I think out of the three major platforms, they do have probably the sharpest ADP. But I think out of any position group, there are a lot of wide receiver values, which is nice because we like to target our running backs early and we can get some nice wide receiver values a little bit later in the draft, which is music to my ears. So without further ado, let's jump into the 10 players that I like the value on Yahoo. Now, this isn't a popular take nowadays, but I don't really care. I'm still going to battle with my dude, Rashee Rice. A questionable human being, questionable talent at wide receiver, but elite role in Kansas City that he is returning to in 2026. So I am willing to block out all the noise. He looks bad in camp because he's never been a man separator. So yeah, he's going to get locked up on one-on-one drills. He is a zone beater, and that is why he is good in this system. Kansas City has basically no one else to throw the ball to. Again, I think, maybe they're a little bit more run-heavy this year with Kenneth Walker in there, but what that's going to do is just make the offense better. They love to use Rashee Rice in the red zone. He was fourth in the entire NFL in red zone targets last year, and he played less than half the season, so he's a dude who's going to get peppered when it matters most, and he should be a PPR demon. Again, past 2 seasons, he's wide receiver 4 in points per game. I just don't want to overthink this. He's an elite fantasy option when he's on the field as much as the losers and nerds want to tell you that he's not. So, again, priced at overall 31 at wide receiver 13. That's the lowest out of the 3 platforms. I have him a lot higher than that. I think people are just, they don't want to accept that he's a really good option, and he just, when he's on the field, does it time and again. I know that people are a little bit worried about the knee recovery. I think he'll be fine. Maybe we get a little bit of a slower start, but I suspect that he'll just be himself. I feel like people are overreacting to clips where he's going against press man coverage, which he's never been good against. So, Rice, he's going to do what he does. He's going to beat zone. He's going to be a target earner in Kansas City and eat for you in fantasy. And again, Yahoo is the cheapest place you can get him. I think he's going to be a consistent producer. Finally, we don't have any looming suspension. He did his jail, literally, his jail time this summer. And should be good for this year. I'm excited about Rashee Rice. Now, next up is Malik Nabers. Again, out of the 3 platforms, this is the lowest one on him. I have him a bunch higher overall. At number 20, all the way up there. I'm potentially thinking about moving him even further up just because of how positive the ACL recovery is looking. It is really just bizarre. I know I've talked about it a couple times, but how bad the reporting was on this in the spring in terms of negativity. Pretty much from the moment he went down up until training camp started, all you heard about Nabers was negativity. And since camp has opened, all we've seen is positivity, right? He looks like Malik Nabers running around on the field. He's running routes. He's making acrobatic catches. There's reports that he's going to potentially return to 11 on 11 as soon as this week, which is fantastic news. So I'm just willing to bet on the talent, man. Malik Nabers is probably a top 5 caliber NFL wide receiver when he's healthy and himself. And if there's anyone who's going to come back strong from a horrific injury, it's going to be the 23-year-old freak athlete. So I'm willing to bet on him. Again, if you take him at the 2-3 turn, I think that's going to be higher than you're going to need to, and is a dude that over the second half of the season, I feel very confident will be a first-round caliber fantasy player. Maybe we get a little bit of a dip at the start of the season as he kind of reacclimates coming off the injury, but if we even have 80% Malik Nabers, I'm taking that over the vast majority of the wide receivers in the NFL. So I'm willing to take the risk. I didn't think that I would be on this side of the Nabers argument going into this season, but you got to be flexible with your opinions, and everything over the past month has been positive for him. So I'm going to roll with it and take the elite talent and bet that he's going to figure it out. Next here is my guy, Carnell Tate, who I have 20 spots ahead of where Yahoo has him, all the way down at 75 overall. This is really just a draft capital bet. I like Carnell Tate as a player. I think that Cam Ward can be better in year 2, especially with some competence finally at offensive coordinator. With Brian Daboll, they're going to have an actual offensive scheme in there, and a little safety valve target in Wan'Dale Robinson, who is quite good in his role as well. They bring in Carnell Tate to be the clear alpha wide receiver, and that's what the reports have been out of camp so far, that he's dominating. He's going to be on the field all the time. And similar, the dude that we just talked about, Malik Nabers, in his rookie year, Brian Daboll got him 170 targets. So Daboll, as a play caller, is not afraid to heavily feature a rookie, and I wouldn't be shocked. Again, we're not going to get 170 like we got out of Nabers, and I don't think Tate is as good of a player as Nabers, but the fact that there's a real chance that he'll be heavily featured here, and he was drafted top 5 in the entire NFL draft. That's a guy who you don't normally get all the way down at 75 overall. I think I'm just going to bet on the talent, bet on the draft capital, and see what Carnell Tate can do as a rookie in a potential ascending offense. It seems gross right now, but things always seem gross when you don't see them coming. So The Titans, who knows, man? I think just bet on the talent of Tate, bet on the draft capital. I think he'll be involved enough to pay off on, wide receiver 2 price tag. And you don't get a top 5 pick this late in your fantasy draft as a rookie, so might as well just take a shot at it. And if you hit, you might hit big. Now, you knew we had to talk about him somewhere. Surprisingly, out of the 3 platforms, Yahoo is actually the lowest on Parker Washington right now, which I am a little bit surprised about. But again, he's another guy we have 20 spots ahead of market here. I can't not follow all of the hype from the reporters, from his quarterback, from his coach, which all echoes the second half production where he was a top 10 fantasy receiver once he made that change into the slot in the Liam Cohen offense. All the reports are that he's going to be a full-time player. He's going to be out there in 2 receiver sets. He's going to be this Z slot guy that just prints fantasy points in the Cohen offense. This was Cooper Kupp in Los Angeles when he had the Triple Crown season. This is Chris Godwin in 2024 when he was the wide receiver 2 before his leg snapped in half. This is an elite role on an offense that we think is good with a coach that we trust and a dude who showed last year over a semi-extended period of time, like the second half of the season, that he can do it and produce at an elite level. So I'm really excited about Parker. I think that the only reason why his price is as low as it is because of the name value and the fact that he was never a top high pick, and there's other dudes there in Jacksonville that have more name value and were higher picks. So I think that's the only thing suppressing it. If we saw a breakout like we saw from maybe a first round wide receiver in the second half of last season, you'd have to pay a lot higher of a price for him, and that's not even accounting for all of the gas that he is getting this summer. I think he's been probably the most glazed player in the NFL. Maybe either him or Luther Burden, I don't know, but Parker, I am reluctantly in. I wanted to be against the hype beast, the hype train, but I'm not going to be, especially at this value. I mean, seeing where he comes in, I'm surprised that the platforms have not reacted with the hype as much as seemingly everyone else is. So definitely targeting Parker, and I think he has a real chance to be a top threat on this Jacksonville offense operating out of the slot full time. Time to talk about Josh Downs again. This is the lowest of the 3 platforms on him, all the way down at 114. Now with the Keenan Allen signing, I think he will probably stay there, if not decrease in price. I have him way, way above this. I might move him down a slight bit with the Keenan signing. Obviously not ideal because he is a dude who works underneath and was a thorn in Ladd McConkey's side last year. But, even if that ends up being the case a little bit for Downs, again, you're not paying a second-round pick for him like you did for Ladd last year. So if he does disappoint, it's not going to be a big disappointment. You're not drafting him to be a starter, but I do think, honestly, that he will be. I'm hopeful that the Keenan thing was more of a concern about general wide receiver depth, and Alec Pierce, who, by the way, still is not even returning to practice. They need warm bodies out there to catch the ball, and now even today, Tyler Warren went down. So, I just refuse to believe that they're going to find ways to keep Josh Downs off the field. If he is somehow the only guy who is healthy there, just get him on the fucking field, man. And if he plays in 2 wide receiver sets, like Shane Steichen's been talking about all spring and summer, he will definitely produce, again, in games in his career where he's played above 70% of snaps, which basically means he was a full-time receiver for that game. He scores about 14 PPR points per game, which is high level production. That's a solid wide receiver 2, probably high-end wide receiver 2. And obviously you're paying nothing for him. So that's what we're looking at. We have Daniel Jones coming off the Achilles, who probably will throw the ball down the field a little bit less. That's what the data suggests for quarterbacks in the first year of their recovery. Josh Downs operates underneath, and there's no more Michael Pittman there. There's targets to be had. There is money to be made. There are bitches to be gotten, and Josh Downs is getting all of them. So draft him in the late rounds this year. He is a guy that I am relentlessly targeting, and I hope that you do the same. Now, another guy I'm way higher on than ADP is Mr. Matthew Golden, who's going all the way down at 139 on Yahoo. Again, I have him inside the top 100, and I think it's just a clear bet on talent. Again, I've talked about the Green Bay receivers a whole bunch in videos so far this summer. I love Christian Watson. I like Golden a lot too, because those are going to be the 2 guys that are on the field all the time. We finally get rid of this 4 or 5 wide receiver timeshare rotation thing that they've had going on the past couple years in Green Bay, with Dontavian Wicks and Romeo Doubs moving out of town. So we have just the 3 now with Golden, Watson, and Jaden Reed. All of the roles have been pretty clear and stated by the reporters and even the quarterback Jordan Love so far this summer, where Golden's going to be the X, Watson's going to be the Z, and Jaden Reed is going to be the slot guy, which means that it will be Golden and Watson on the field pretty much all the time, which is great. Golden as a starting X wide receiver, again, he's a burner down the field. He's a first-round talent who was a couple missed connections on deep plays last year from looking like he had a really interesting and intriguing rookie season. I think the Packers are going to throw the ball more this year. Their defense is projected to be a bit worse. They have a little bit of a lesser offensive line. They probably won't be able to rely on Josh Jacobs quite as heavily as they have in recent years. So I think it's a perfect storm for Green Bay pass catchers. Again, as you know, I'm in on Watson, and I think at a suppressed cost as well, I'm in on the Matthew Golden potential breakout as the new starting X wide receiver for the Packers in 2026. This one feels a little gross and it's not exciting, but I do like the value of Michael Pittman going down at 125 on Yahoo. Again, he's not going to be a flashy pick. He's not going to be someone that like wins you your league, but I think he's a dude you can get in a bench style spot in terms of your draft and be a dude who could be like a solid flex contributor throughout the season for you, especially in PPR leagues. He's a guy who is just a technician in the short and intermediate area of the field. While Daniel Jones was on the field last year in Indianapolis, he was actually a top 12 receiver in points per game. And then Pittsburgh goes and acquires him. They pay him real money. And I think he fits 2026 Aaron Rodgers' play style a lot better than DK Metcalf does. So like if he leads this team in targets, I would not be at all surprised. Honestly, that's what I would like project. DK's not as good in the kind of short area of the field where Rodgers just doesn't really throw the ball deep too much anymore. He wants a guy who will be safe and open and move the sticks, and that's what Pittman does at a really great level. Again, he's not a flashy player. He won't be a flashy pick in your draft, which is why he goes so late. So I think he'll be a nice one, especially in PPR setups where you can just probably reliably play him in your flex this year. A dude who probably get 5 or 6 catches a game and be reliable for you in an unspectacular way. But at 125, I think that's a good value to have. Now, I couldn't make 3 of these videos without talking about my guy Shough, right? Yahoo is disrespecting my boy. They got him all the way down at 171, which is fucking ridiculous. QB 27, he's behind Daniel Jones. He's behind Bryce Young. He's behind Fernando Mendoza, who may not even play week 1. I can't believe the disrespect to my guy Shough. I cannot get over it. Again, I know that I'm super aggressive on him. You don't have to be as aggressive as me, but again, this price is just flat out wrong and disrespectful. I think that the year 2 breakout, it could be on the horizon for him. He started in 9 games last year, and in those 9 games, even with a little bit of a slower start, he was the QB5 in fantasy in terms of points per game. He was 3rd in the NFL in quarterback rushing yards from the time he took over, so he has a nice little safe rushing floor. And again, as I've talked about 1,000 times already, we love Kellen Moore. They run a lot of plays in his offense. They play in a dome in New Orleans. They have an easy schedule, and they added weapons. I know, sadly, we lose Jordan Tyson to the hamstring injury for the first part of the season, but the running game should be better with Travis Etienne in there. And I just think wheels are up for Shough. He's a guy that I believe in. Again, if you're in a super flex, take him as your QB2, please. If you play a normal 1-quarterback league, just take him with your last pick in the draft as a backup quarterback. I think that you could be very happy with it and have 2 good quarterbacks on your hands if he is the second one that you grab. So I'm willing to bet on the breakout here, and this draft cost is just, I think they did this to make me upset personally. Bryce Young, really? Come on now. What are we doing? Draft Tyler Shough here. All right, so someone who's not named Brock Bowers is actually going to have to catch passes in Las Vegas, and I think that all reports as of now are looking like Jalen Nailor is the best bet to do so. They go and pay him in free agency. He was the first and only guy that the new Clint Kubiak staff actually prioritized in terms of a pass catcher, either in the draft or in free agency to go get. They go pay him 3 years, $35 million, which again isn't a ton of money, but it's not nothing either. And I think he's a guy that in very limited run in Minnesota actually showed some flashes. Again, he was stuck behind like 2 really great players over there, so he was never going to be above them. But I think he's a dude who can play a little bit, and the Raiders wide receiver room is just like complete trash. So I think that he will separate, and that's what the reports have been in camp so far, that he's looked like the best out of that receiver group. So again, at a 176 overall draft cost, that's a guy that you can get in like the last round of the draft, who again could just become like a reliable plug-in type of guy in your flex, and you're getting him pretty much for free. So again, someone's going to have to catch the ball. I think this Raiders offense, they're not going to be the best in the league, but they're not going to be as bad as they were last year. I will promise you that. Competent coaching will get enough out of them to get them past that, and I think Nailor's a guy who could get some pretty consistent volume in a way where you're not going to be able to get something like that this late in the draft, except for the next guy that we're going to talk about as well. But those are really the only 2 where I'm like, hey, they have a very clear path to a lot of targets in a way where you don't have to spend really any draft capital on them in your fantasy draft. So that sounds like a thumbs up pick to me. Take Jalen Nailor late in your draft. Now, the last guy to talk about today is Wan'Dale Robinson down in Tennessee. We were talking about both Titans wide receivers today, which is a scary proposition to make. I will admit that. But I like Wan'Dale. I'm literally over 100 spots above ADP on this. I can't believe that, but I am. As I just made my wide receiver rankings, like I was like, damn, 35 is really high. But then I was looking at the dudes that I had, right around him and below him. I was like, I don't think I would take any of those guys over Wan'Dale. Like if you think about, I don't know, like I would take him over DK Metcalf. I would take him over other dudes in that area. I'm trying to think, like I would take him over Michael Wilson. Like dudes that are in that area. I like Wan'Dale, man. They pay him a bunch of money to go down and follow his offensive coordinator into Tennessee. They pay him 4 years, $70 million. He's going to be the easy button check down guy for Cam Ward, and I think with an offensive line that is still a work in progress, that's probably something that he's going to have to do a lot. All the camp reports have been great. great. Like him and Carnell Tate, everyone's been talking very positively about. While Tate's making like the flashy plays, Wan'Dale Robinson's the one consistently leading the team in targets and receptions pretty much like every day in camp. So he's a guy I think, again, like PPR, this is a guy you should be targeting. Maybe if it's like standard or half point, maybe less so. But he's a guy who's going to earn a lot of volume, and he's done it throughout his career. Last year he was the wide receiver 14 in New York. And again, we're not expecting that this year. Like there is more target competition, and you can't just recreate that. But like a dude who has that in his range of outcomes should not go all the way down at wide receiver 68, especially after he just got paid to probably have an expanded role and be with the coach that made him do what he did last year in that scheme. So I think he's a very clear click. I don't really understand this price tag for Yahoo. They are pretty sharp for most of the other picks, but this one is a little bit of a head scratcher. They're by far the lowest out of the platforms. So while other people, are not going to be scrolling all the way down the queue to 178, you can do so and find your boy Wan'Dale and take him late in your draft. I think he is a great bet, especially in PPR leagues. That's going to do it for today. Make sure to save this video if you are a Yahoo drafter. Let me know what you think of the list in the comments if there's anyone else that I may have missed. I'm not a Yahoo drafter myself. I'm just reading off the ADP. So if you're in there, if you're in the streets more than me, let me know. And if there's anyone that I missed, would love to hear about it and chat about it in the comments. So yeah, leave a thumbs up on this. It helps your boy in the YouTube algorithm. We always need that help. And subscribe if you're new. We're going to keep making these videos. If you can't tell, I got a 4K camera now. Shit is looking way too sweet over here. We got the logo on the TV behind me. I mean, the setup is just nothing short of elite. So if that isn't enough for you, I don't know what is. Stay tuned. We'll be back for the next one. Peace.